Welcome to the final team project showcase. This is for ANSC 6480. It is the Advanced Animal Nutrition 2 course at the University of Guelph. We have 9 presentations today that we'll get through. We have some amazing nutrition students that are putting together ideas for future products or services based on up-to-date research and their creative interpretation of that. So
hi everyone, our product is called SunSync. So it's not just a light, but it's an experience. So this is the light here. And SunSync includes a smart UVB lighting system that's controlled by an app, allowing you to check, update, and change your lighting system no matter how far you are away. Beyond the lighting system controller, it also comes with a rapid vitamin D test kit that's never previously been seen in animals, only humans before. So the app, it uses integrative user technology where it asks the questions to the user and uses scientific literature to then provide species-specific advice and create a customized lighting schedule that fits your animal's needs. So this product focuses on providing a modern solution that mimics natural sun exposure to animals that might not have the luxury of living outside. And currently, version 1 of SunSync targets animals, specifically rabbits, chinchillas, birds, and reptiles. So why does SunSync work? So it focuses on providing vitamin D, which is a fat-soluble vitamin that's essential for calcium and phosphorus metabolism, in a manner that mimics how animals would have received it in the wild. Realistically, these animals are, before they were under the care of humans, they would have received vitamin D both dietarily, but also from the sun. So how does dietary vitamin D differ from solar vitamin D? There are 2 main forms of vitamin D2 and then vitamin D3. So vitamin D2 is the plant-based food source, so it's from food, while vitamin D3 can be provided by animal-based food sources, but also from the sun, from UV light exposure. And both sources are important. However, vitamin D3 has some advantages within the body, where it's 87% more potent than vitamin D2. And it also has a higher bioavailability in most species, and in general is more stable and more efficiently used by the body. So since vitamin D is essential for the body and dietary vitamin D is not always sufficient to sustain their needs, this puts animals who live indoors, for example, at risk of developing severely impairing their calcium and phosphorus absorption if there's not enough vitamin D, but it can also result in issues such as bone diseases like rickets and poor coat or feather quality, and chronic deficiencies can eventually lead to cardiovascular or immune system issues, and it can even be fatal at that point. So this is the general pathway for vitamin D3 in mammals. So where it starts with 7-dehydrocholesterol, and it's synthesized in the skin when exposed to UVB light, and then the bonds are broken down and it's converted into pre-vitamin D3 in the epidermis of the skin. Then in the skin, the vitamin D3 slowly converts to vitamin D3. The pre-vitamin D3 converts to vitamin D3, and then this vitamin D3 is transported to the liver, where it's converted to 25-hydroxy vitamin D, which then moves to the kidneys, where it's converted to 1,25-dihydroxy vitamin D. And that is the active form of vitamin D that then circulates through your blood and goes to your different organs and throughout your body. Okay, sorry. Oh, I did. Oh, thank you, yeah. So there are also species-specific differences with SunSync, which is what the app takes into consideration when you put in your recommendation so it's best fitted for your animals and your needs. So for example, with rabbits, they absorb most of their calcium from their diet, so their vitamin D needs aren't necessarily as necessary for the absorption of calcium, but it's still needed for the usage of calcium within the body. Then chinchillas, they're highly dependent on UV light because of how they've evolved. So they evolved in high altitude and high UV environments, so they require higher and more consistent levels of UVB from the sun, and which they synthesize through their nose and ears because their coats are too thick, so the UVB rays won't penetrate their coat. Then with birds, they're also pretty cool. They have a slightly different pathway as well, where their 7-dehydrocholesterol is converted to vitamin D3 on their feathers rather than in the epidermis, and then it's ingested through preening. So instead of an internal process, it's happening on top of their feathers, which is kind of cool. Then finally with reptiles, their vitamin D3 synthesis is temperature dependent. So they have to bask in the sun and reach a certain temperature to activate that pathway. If they're too cool, that pathway is not going to activate, and then they are more likely to have a deficiency. Especially because they also rely on their vitamin D from not just the temperature, but like from the UV lights. They don't absorb it very well from dietary sources. So speaking of diets, here's a quick breakdown of the dietary levels. I'm not going to go through each one just for the sake of time, but this is what they're typically supplied to for the animal in their diets, as well as the blood ranges that they would ideally be within when you're taking those levels and testing it on the test kit. So that kind of gives you an idea, like when you take their blood and test it, it'll tell you whether or not you're within the healthy range and what those requirements would be based on your levels or their levels. So now with regards to vitamin D retention and digestibility in these animals, starting with rabbits, I think I'm blocking it, aren't I? Starting with rabbits. They prefer excretion over storage. Sorry, I realized I was talking on the whole time. So they have a lower retention. So that means they constantly need a more consistent source to prevent deficiency. Than chinchillas, they also require a source of dietary fat because it's a fat-soluble vitamin to be able to absorb vitamin D. They're also adapted to retain vitamin D for longer. So they do still need a constant source of vitamin D because they're used to those higher UV rays. But they're also pretty good at keeping it and like keeping it at a consistent level throughout. So dietary sources of vitamin D are not needed as much, and they can actually increase the risk of hypervitaminosis D because they're just used to getting it, relying on it from the sun. Birds also require dietary fat for absorption of vitamin D, and they also process vitamin D quite quickly. So consistent exposure is also important for them. Then reptiles, they also have low dietary vitamin D digestibility, so they're mainly dependent on it from the UV lights. Sorry, reptiles. Reptiles have low dietary vitamin D digestibility, so they depend on it from the lights. Also, again, in nature, they have pretty good retention because it's not always consistent if you have sun every single day. But again, for them, it's temperature dependent. So if they're not reaching that heat requirement, but there is sunlight, but it's not warm enough for them, then, or they're not able to sit in it long enough, then they're not going to be able to activate that pathway, and it can still lead to deficiency. So moving on to the app design. So we plan to have actual app developers for this and graphic designers. So at the moment, this is limited to my artistic abilities, which is limited. So this is the welcome screen for the app. We would start out with a tutorial for the test kit. So it walks you through step by step how to take their blood, how to measure it, and how to interpret those results. Then those results will be uploaded to the app, and you can move on to the next step, which is, as a new user, your first step after that would be taking the setup quiz. Here's some example questions. Starting out with what species you're working with here, then just general season, and a bit more information here, such as your region and enclosure size, etc. So the reason that that information is important is because the app, based on where you are in the world and what season you're in, it will sync and update to how your seasons change. So like with shorter days in the winter and longer days in the summer, that information is quite important because then it can mimic the real life more realistically. Next, this is an example of inputting the lighting schedule. So with the lighting schedule, you can change it day to day if you would like. You can also have it every day of the week be the same, but you can input the light intensity, length. You can change all this, but the recommendations based on your quiz results will be at the bottom. So you can choose to apply all these, or if you're like, I want all of this except for the lighting length, I want shorter days, you can change that. There's lots of just opportunity to customize with this, but those recommendations would be based off of a database of literature for the app.
And then looking more at the economics, they would cost $85.17 to produce this. And that's including all the materials, and then the labor and manufacturing would be done at a different factory, which would be about 10 to 20% of the material costs is usually what they say. And then we would outsource the app, which would cost about $50,000. And then general maintenance on that app a year would be about $7,500. And the product would cost about $199 for the product, the app, and some of the test strips. And then you can buy the extra test strips separately for $20, and you would get 15 in a pack. So this is just kind of a simple revenue breakdown with a simple linear model where kind of projected 2,000 units sold just because it's a little more of a niche product, and there'd be more pet buyers and maybe pet stores that would buy it. And then the test strips, we would project around 1.5 extra kits sold a year just for at the beginning they may use extra just to try to get that number kind of dialed in. And then the app would not have like a subscription. It would be free to use. So there would be an ad, which would be $5 per user. So just a bit about the net profit. We kind of talked about a bunch of this. So there would be an R&D cost where we would continue to invest in finding the best optimal things and more future stuff. So that'd be a little bit of what our net profits would look like over the years, kind of a rough estimate. And then our new products, kind of future direction would be to a new product to larger animals for lambs and poultry because they have a strong need for calcium and they're born inside usually and they need vitamin D. So then opening our own production plant to reduce the manufacturing cost and moving for net zero emissions to get a greener company. And then lastly, this is our brochure. So it just says a bit about our company and why vitamin D is important and a bit about some of the mock UV and peak lighting hours for different animals. Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Today we'll be talking about our app Purrcision, which is a personalized feline lipid nutrition. So feline obesity is currently the most common metabolic disorder in domestic cats, and importantly, it is largely curable or preventable. A major driver for this issue is nutrition, especially how dietary fats are managed. This becomes even more challenging with the increased trend of homemade diets. While well-intentioned, these diets often lack the precise nutrition values, making it easy to unintentionally overfeed an energy-dense component like fats, especially in an indoor or a low-active cat. Now that brings us to lipids. Lipids are not just a source of calories, but they're biological active molecules that influence metabolism, inflammation, and overall health. In cats, this is especially important because they are obligate carnivores with unique lipid metabolism. They rely heavily on fats and have limited ability to convert certain fats into their active forms, which brings us to omega-6 and omega-3. Now, omega-6 fatty acids such as linoleic acid and arachidonic acid are essential for normal physiological functions. That includes the skin health and the cellular structure. Although when given in excess, it is not balanced out with omega-3, it could cause pro-inflammatory signaling, and that is closely related with obesity and metabolic dysfunctions. Whereas in omega-3 fatty acids, that includes ALA, EPA, and DHA, they play a critical role in regulating metabolism. These fats are incorporated into cell membranes and influence cell signaling pathways that improve insulin sensitivity, reducing triglyceride levels, and support healthier fat metabolism. Studies have shown that cats with higher omega-3 fatty acids are associated with more favorable metabolic markers, including improved adipose tissue function, which brings us to the metabolic impact. So adipose tissue is not only a storage site for fat, but it also acts as an endocrine organ, which releases hormones like adopectin that regulates energy balance and metabolic health. In obesity, adopectin levels decrease, which causes the metabolic dysfunction. It has been shown that omega-3 fatty acids help support it's supporting the system. This figure here is from a recent research in cats showing that excess energy intake leads to fat accumulation, which are adipose tissue becoming enlarged and dysfunction, as shown in the overweight obese cat there, and shifting into a pro-inflammatory state with reduced adopectin, which contributes to insulin resistance and an increase of metabolic dysfunction. This highlights the key issue of it doesn't matter how much fat cats are consuming, but the type and the balance of those fat that matters. However, with this level of precision is difficult for pet owners to achieve, especially when they're trying to prepare homemade diets. So our solution comes into the design of our nutritional science practice into a personalized guidance for cat owners. Or, come on. For your okay. Yep.
So now I'm going to show you the app that we made. All right. So there are 4 tabs. I'll start with profile. Sorry, I can't really make this bigger. I hope everyone can see.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
Okay. So you have the cat profile at the top. You can change the name. You can change their age. You can change their weight, activity level. So I'll just put it at moderate. If you have a body condition score from your vet, or if you know how to do it, you can change that as well. If they have any health conditions, you can also add that. And you can save the profile. Then I'll head over to the food log page. Whatever you put in your cat's bowl, you can search it up from here. So if I'm adding fish oil as a topper, maybe to the kibble, or maybe it's just a fully homemade meal, I can do salmon or salmon oil, tuna. You can search the food there, and then you add. And then you can change the amount. So if you're adding 100 grams of chicken breast or 50, it's going to give you a nutritional breakdown at the bottom. And because we're focusing on fats, it's also going to give you a lipid breakdown. So the first one is the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. Second one is how much ALA is in 50 grams of chicken breast. And the last one is EPA plus DHA. And you can also change the unit here. So you add that to log. You have a summary of that day's log over here with a daily total there. And you can easily add or remove. And then you have the dashboard, which summarizes everything. So the big circle is your daily fat goal. And you can see how much of that goal is met that day. So this one's 100%. It's actually a little bit more. So it's 12.4 out of 12.3 grams a day. And then you also have your other macro breakdowns. So it's protein, carbs, moisture. You have your calorie tracker, and then a daily lipid composition profile there with the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio there. And also like the other breakdowns like ALA, EPA, and DHA. These are activity tips that you get for your cat every day. Like this one says that 10 to 15 minutes of interactive play is recommended that day. And then we have the meals tab. So you get the goal at the top, and then you can either follow these recommended meals yourself, or you also have the option of purchasing different meal kits. They're priced differently. They have different components, and like they're geared towards different cats. So that's the app. And I think Amy's now going to talk about the economics of it all. If I could go back.
Sorry. Well, I changed that totally.
Sorry, for like our app structure, it's going to be similar to other like tracking apps where we have like the free versus premium version. And what Gasly just showed them like all the features of our premium version. For the free version, for like the light version, you will still have access to like personalizing information where you put your pet's age and weight, and also the breakdown of the macronutrients in the first half with protein, calories intake, and basic food logging, like how you would in a lot of apps, but you won't have access to different other things. And where you have premium, which we will offer for $7.99 a month, which is comparable to other apps that are on the market. Some of them charge for around 10 to 15 or more if it's more like medically like oriented. But since we're not a medical platform, it's more like a food guidance / tracker. We're trying to price it not for too high, so it's $7.99 per month. And with the premium feature, you have access to what Gasly described with the lipid dashboard, and this is different from the macronutrients. This is does like a full lipid breakdown of the omega-6 and the lipid ratio of that. And according to like the recommended needs based on AFCO. And other than that, we also offer like ingredient recommendations. Like if you need like a gram of like ALA, it will give you options for what you could include in your past homemade diet for to complete like that like lipid needs. Other than that, we also offer the data sharing where we can like partner with their preferred vet clinics and have like these data linked to them so they can see like the information and health conditions of their cats and like monitoring their diet to give owners that like peace of mind and that reassurance. And the meal kit opt-in, the prices varies, and this will also be available for like the premium users, and this will be done through like our partner fresh pet food companies. And the most important features, it will be ads free, and the free version it will be with ads. And the brochures that I was like handing out and we were passing around, that is something that we would put for display at like vet clinics and like pet stores, because they were going to be one of our like primary like target consumers. But our main one is going to be cat owners, especially those who like make homemade meals for their cats. That's going to be our main target consumers. But vet clinics and fresh food companies will also be our two like secondary target consumers, and these are through like partnership and commission rather than the purchase of the app themselves. And since this is only an app, we don't have any actual products, so the cost for the development of the app is for graphic designers, app designs, and like the nutritional like modeling that we will need in like the background construction of this app, and also like the daily maintenance costs that are associated with just keeping like the app updated. In terms of revenue, since our app is free or paid subscription, it's we're anticipating not all users will be paying for the premium feature. So if we have 10,000 users with around 20% subscription rates, it will like comes to a little over $190 per year annually, and this would increase if there are more people using the app or more subscribers. But we also have other secondary sources of income, which are through commissions to our like target partners, vet clinics, and as I mentioned, the fresh pet food companies, as well as like in apps and through fresh pet food companies, they will cater their diet towards the cat like needs, and they will get their income, and they will receive commission for every new kit that are being purchased.
That's everything.
Hello everyone, my name is Esther and I have my other team members here to Simon and Archie. And we'll be discussing how mineral-based oral rehydration strategies can mitigate transport-induced metabolic stress in dairy calves, and how we translate this into a decision support tool. Canada produces about 500,000 male dairy calves, and most of which are transported in first week of life. Although we don't particularly have accessible data that is showing the total number of calves being transported. But what we know from research is that the large number of calves are transported from between farms, the calf facilities and the auctions. So early life transport is common in dairy production. It's a routine. So the process that is involved includes feed and water withdrawal, handling, and environmental stress. This can actually impact the animal's welfare and lead to farm economic losses. So just to show you a conceptual model of what is involved when transport is. So we have transport stress, we initiate dehydration in calves, which can actually lead to electrolyte imbalance and amplify lipid mobilization. So looking at lipid metabolism itself under stressful situations such as transport, cortisol will increase, NEFA, there's going to be an increase in circulating NEFA. And as a result of that, we've seen in research that there's an association between increasing NEFA and reduced feed intake and also susceptibility to diseases, so lower immunity. So in our field work, in this framework, minerals or electrolytes are actually the primary intervention, whereas lipids are physiological outcomes. So electrolyte minerals such as sodium, potassium, chloride, and magnesium have been shown in study to actually help as a nutritional intervention for transport stress, as it supports fluid balance and also acid and base status, and indirectly moderates excessive lipid mobilization. So in literature, we know the physiology. The physiology is already established, and it's established that ORS actually works. But then we need a standardized way to access dehydration rates and guide intervention of farm. So the gap is not in the biology, but it's in the decision making. So I'll go back to Simon to discuss the app and.
Okay, looking at the interface of the app, we have the pre-transport, the in-transport, and then the arrival. And then the results will show either the animal is in high risk, moderate, or low. So please, we can scan the QR code to see how the app works. So when you scan the app, you can join the app. So when you join, you see the right-hand corner, you see a green symbol with a white plus over there. When you type, that's the first animal, automatically it will generate a tag code to represent the animal. So during the tag code, you can get the calf age, the cholesterol level. When these are the parameters you want to input into the app. First, you have the age, the cholesterol level, time since last milk, transportation duration, the duration in which you want to transport the animal, the temperature, that's the ambient temperature. You can put the figures inside so that we continue from there. And then we have location to where you pick the animals. So assuming when we have Guelph over here, and then we have adequate cholesterol level, time of duration, so you continue from there, you will get in transport. Sometimes some farmers prefer to take data during in transport, but it's optional. Sometimes they do the rest at what arrival. So when you key in the parameters and then when you arrive to, you key in your parameters, you will see that you have the low rates and then the high rates over there. Chris, are you doing it to see the results of the app? So after you key in the arrival parameters, it will generate a result for you and a recommendation of how much ORS to be given to the animal if the animal is not in a high risk, and then if the animal too is not in a low risk. Okay, so the ORS strategy, we chose the hypersonic ORS because it contains calcium and then glucose, and then electrolytes and then glucose. But mostly farmers do feed the animals with the ORS, which is not good. So we try to separate the nutrient, that's the milk, from the ORS. So when you feed the milk and the ORS, you get osmolate rating. That is what free absorption, which is what not good for the animals. Okay, I will continue.
Thank you, Simon. Now the economic consequences and economic part of this design we have is that the transport stress does not directly cause the disease, but it significantly increases the susceptibility by impairing hydration, gut function, and immunity of the calf. As a result, producer face increased treatment costs, additional labor, delayed intake, and reduced early growth performance, all of which contribute to the economic losses. This app can be implemented as a free tool to the producers with suboptimal advanced features or industry supported deployment through feed companies. As we can see, the transport stress is not when it's not managed effectively, there will be high cost, and when managed effectively, the cost will be quickly down, and there will be less cost through treatment, labor, and growth. This graph compares the cost when we supply the ORS. It's only the $6. So when we have to do treatment, the cost will rise up to $35, and when there is growth loss too, it wholly rises to the $65 for each calf. Now, the main version of this, the economic version, is we will provide free version to the farmers, as well as we will they will pay for the advanced feature like the data tracking and heart level insights, and all the data will be anonymous, and they could be sold to the industry and policymakers for the government too, and the ORS companies who will be who would like to integrate with us, they can pay us through these methods. We can earn through this app. And the take home message of this is transport stress in dairy calves is fundamentally a hydration and mineral imbalance problem that drives to lipid. By standardizing nutrition decisions, we can improve recovery, welfare, and economic outcomes. We are not changing biology, we are just improving how nutrition decisions are made.
Okay. So our product is OmegaTrack. It's a milk-line omega-3 sensor to boost milk fat. So just to start, we're going to hand around a little model of our OmegaTrack, and then this is a producer poster. So this will get handed out to like farm supply stores, go around to producers, or anywhere with like high traffic areas for dairy farmers.
And then the QR code that's on the bottom of this would lead you to a website that would have the cost of the product, it would have information, and then any contact information for if someone was wanting to purchase the product.
What? Oh, no, just kidding. So milk fat is a major driver of product quality and farm revenue, and many producers rely on it financially. Omega-3 levels can directly influence the milk fat profile. OmegaTrack is a real-time milk line sensor that measures omega-3 concentration during the milking process. So this helps to avoid unnecessary feed costs. Beyond milk fat, omega-3 also plays important roles in reproduction and immune function.
So omega-3 fatty acids play a functional role beyond energy, particularly in reproduction, immunity, and milk consumption. So in Holstein cows, omega-3 supplementation has been shown to improve ovarian function and prostaglandin regulation, positively affecting fertility. Omega-3s are incorporated directly into milk fat, changing fatty acid profile towards a more desirable compensation. Omega-3s are essential for cell membrane fluidity, enzyme activity, and signaling pathways, specifically during immune and reproductive stress periods. Milk is also the sole source of omega-3s for nursing animals, and the amount they receive solely depends on the mother's intake. So in dairy production systems, omega-3 fatty acids mostly come from plant sources like flaxseed, which is ALA, and marine sources like fish oil, which is EPA and DHA. In a study by Petit and colleagues, they found that linseed oil supplementation increased ALA dramatically, from 1 to 13.9% of total milk fatty acids. Mohammed and colleagues found that omega-3 supplementation increases omega-3 while decreasing omega-6, improving the omega-6 to 3 ratio. These changes improve the nutritional quality of milk fat, which can positively affect butter and cream processing.
In terms of digestibility, omega-3 fatty acids in dairy cows mainly come from sources like flaxseed, which provides alpha-linoleic acid or ALA. And once consumed, ALA is digested and absorbed in the digestive tract, and it can then be converted into longer chain omega-3s like EPA and DHA. However, in ruminants, this process is quite inefficient because of rumen biohydrogenation, meaning rumen microbes break down and saturate many of these unsaturated fatty acids before they can be absorbed. As a result, only a portion of the original omega-3 intake is available for use by the cow, which is why strategies like rumen-protected supplements are becoming increasingly important to improve omega-3 availability.
So retention is how much omega-3 consumed by the cow is passed into the milk fat rather than being lost to digestion or through the tissues. So according to Uridia and colleagues, omega-3 retention differs significantly by fatty acid type. ALA is transferred much more efficiently into milk fat than long chain omega-3s are. Additionally, in this study, they found that nearly 50% of supplemented ALA was recovered in the milk fat, showing high retention efficiency. In contrast, Torrell and colleagues found that EPA and DHA have much lower transfer efficiencies, which is about 4 to 5% of dietary intake appearing in milk fat. The low retention is primarily due to rumen biohydrogenation, where the rumen microbes saturate unsaturated fatty acids and metabolic partitioning to other tissues. Mohammed and colleagues found that diet formulation can improve omega-3 retention, showing that fish oil supplementation increased total omega-3 concentration in milk fat from 0.87 to 1.8 grams per 100 grams of milk fatty acid. So overall, these studies show that omega-3 retention is limited but diet dependent.
And so now going into the production costs, we estimate that each unit would cost approximately $1,500 to $1,800 to manufacture. The estimate is just based on existing milk analysis devices and sensor technologies that are already used in commercial dairy farm systems. And then going into the cost also to the producer. For example, a commercially available milk analyzer from Genec Inc. It is priced at around $4,000 Canadian. So using that as like a benchmark for us, our estimated producer cost of $3,500 to $4,500 per unit is realistic and consistent with current market pricing for similar technologies. This pricing also follows standard ag tech models. So where products are typically sold at about 2 to 2.5 times the manufacturing cost to cover maintenance, service, and technical support. It's also important to note that OmegaTrack would be installed per milking cluster rather than per individual cow. This will help reduce the overall cost burden for these producers. So now the cost to the consumer. When we look at the impact on consumers, the increase in price is expected to be minimal because these costs are spread across thousands of liters of milk. So the estimated increase would only be about 3 to 6 cents per liter of milk. and then 25 to 40 cents for butter, and then around 20 to 35 cents for ice cream. This is considered reasonable, especially since similar price increases already exist for value-added products like omega-3 eggs and DHA-enriched dairy products. So in addition to the Omega Track has the potential to offset some of its own costs by reducing the oversupplementation of omega-3s in feed. Producers can lower the feed costs and improve efficiency, which helps balance the initial investment. Now to wrap it up, the annual revenue. Looking at market potential, there are approximately 10,000 dairy farms in Canada. If we assume that just 5% of them adopt this rate in the early stages, that's about 500 farms. So with an average of 8 units per farm, that results in around 4,000 units sold. So at $4,000 per unit, this represents an estimated annual revenue of around $16 million. And overall, these numbers suggest that the Omega Track is not only economically feasible, but it also is scalable and commercially viable within the dairy industry. For supplementation, we would suggest a product like Microtinic Omega, which is a rumen-protected omega-3 supplement designed specifically for dairy cows. The key advantage of this product is that it protects the omega-3 fatty acids like EPA and DHA from being broken down within the rumen. This allows more beneficial fatty acids to reach the intestine where they can then be absorbed and actually transferred into the milk. Because of this, it's much more efficient than traditional omega-3 sources. And since our Omega Track system would identify cows with low omega-3, we would be able to detect any low levels of omega-3, meaning this type of supplement could be used in a targeted way, helping to improve milk fat quality while also reducing unnecessary feed costs. Omega Track uses a near-infrared spectroscopy, or NIR, which is a rapid and non-destructive technique that is already widely used in the dairy industry to measure milk components such as fat, protein, and lactose. This method works by measuring how molecules absorb light in the near-infrared range. As milk flows through this device, a small portion is diverted into a thin sampling chamber where NIR light is applied. Different fatty acids absorb specific wavelengths of light, and a detector will capture the resulting absorption pattern. This system then uses calibration models to estimate the omega-3 concentration in the milk and sends information directly to the producer in real time. In terms of maintenance, Omega Track is designed to integrate seamlessly with existing milking equipment and follows standard cleaning protocols, including reverse flow cleaning with hot and cold fluids, as well as regular rinsing and sanitization cycles, meaning it fits into normal farm routines without requiring any additional steps. Overall, Omega Track offers a very practical way to improve both milk quality and farm efficiency. By monitoring omega-3 levels in real time, farmers can make more precise feeding decisions instead of relying on guesswork. This not only helps increase milk fat quality, but also reduces unnecessary supplementation while improving omega-3 levels to support cow health, reproduction, and immunity.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to be outlining our product showcase on DermaPal. So just to start off, I wanted to do a little quick summary. If everyone raised their hand, they own a dog. Few of us, decent amount. Now, keep your hand raised if you care about your dog's health and well-being. Beautiful. We don't have any psychopaths. Okay, so with that, our product aims to address quite a challenging what's the word for it? Animal welfare issue in the canine industry. Canine atopic dermatitis, characterized as a chronic inflammatory skin disorder caused by hypersensitivity to environmental and pathogenic allergens. It's been estimated that in general, up to 15% of the household dog population suffers from this disorder. However, increased prevalence has been shown to be linked to a specific breed. AT leads to severe irritation of the skin and can lead to further infection, which can reduce the quality of life of our pets. The mechanisms by which canine AT develops is highly complex and not fully understood, but has been linked to an extensive pro-inflammatory cytokine response and impaired skin barrier function, which are also indicative of deficiencies in a variety of nutrients. Diagnosis and treatment techniques for this disorder are not well established by veterinarians. A scoring system called CADESI is the most widely used method used by vets to assess severity, but it is limited by the fact that it solely relies on observational data as opposed to quantitative elements. To the extent of our knowledge, there's no current available technique for quantifying, quantitatively evaluating canine AD severity that also addresses it from a nutritional standpoint. With that being said, DermaPal is a compact, easy to read device that will be marketed towards veterinarians for the purpose of treating dogs with clinical signs or pre-diagnosed AD. This device will be placed on the medial hind leg, a common area for AD flare-ups, and will evaluate pro-inflammatory cytokines using antibody-based colorimetric detection, as well as transepidermal water loss, or TWL, using a closed chamber sensor. This product will also come with a digital nutritional guidebook that will pool the results from both the two tests mentioned earlier and allow veterinarians to give targeted nutritional recommendations to the owner to explain later in more detail.
So the first component of our device will look at the 3 key cytokines that are elevated in the skin of dogs with atopic dermatitis, and these include IL-4, IL-31, and IL-33. So these 3 were chosen because they each tell us something specific. So IL-4 is the driver of the type 2 inflammatory response that's characteristic of AD. And it's also linked to multiple nutrient deficiencies such as vitamin D, vitamin A, and iron. IL-31 is the primary itch mediator in dogs with AD and has also been shown to improve with vitamin D supplementation. Additionally, IL-33 is also, again, elevated in dogs with AD and indicative of a vitamin D deficiency as well, alongside a vitamin B6 deficit. So the detection system on this part of the patch works through the use of a microneedle device that incorporates antibody-based colorimetric detection. So each cytokine has a designated color: red for IL-4, blue for IL-31, and yellow for IL-33. When the device is applied, the microneedles penetrate the outer layer of the skin painlessly and cause the interstitial fluid to be drawn up by the microneedles to bind the target antibody. So these will then bind to antibody-coated colored latex beads that are sitting at the base of a special porous gel. Once bound, they will float to the top where a capture antibody will keep them there, which shows the color at the top of the gel and indicates whether that specific cytokine is present. So based on the color pattern, veterinarians can recommend targeted supplementation. So if there's a strong blue color, the result indicates that IL-31 is elevated and thus vitamin D deficiency is the primary concern. A strong red component indicates, alongside a vitamin D deficiency, also points to vitamin A or iron deficiencies. And a strong yellow would signal an additional vitamin B6 deficiency. Seeing all 3 colors again would prompt the vet to recommend a comprehensive nutritional panel, including these nutrients within safe upper limits.
Second component of DermaPal is the closed chamber sensor for measuring TWL. One of the major contributing factors to the pathogenesis of this disorder is impaired skin barrier function. Skin's outermost layer, the stratum corneum, is made up of corneocytes surrounded by an organized layer of cholesterols, ceramides, and other free fatty acids. Disruption of this layer allows for allergens to penetrate the skin, leading to a severe inflammatory response and sensitization to the allergens. The skin's lipid barrier also acts to prevent water from passively diffusing into the atmosphere. So a disrupted barrier also means increased TWL. This measurement has been widely used in canine as well as human and feline medicine as an indicator of AD severity. DermaPal's closed chamber sensor creates the microenvironment where water is able to evaporate through the skin and into the column chamber, where sensors can detect and change humidity gradients. This data will be processed internally into flux density units, and then 3 LED lights will be available below it to display severity. The green will indicate a flux density below 30, meaning healthy to very mild severity. Yellow will show between 30 and 80 flux density units, meaning mild to moderate severity, and red will show greater than 80 flux density units, meaning high severity. From a nutritional perspective, impaired skin barrier function and increased TWL has been associated with deficiencies in omega-3s, zinc, and vitamin E, and supplementation with said nutrients has been shown to strengthen the skin barrier and thus reduce TWL.
Okay, so once the cytokine panel tells us which inflammatory pathways are active,
and then the TEWL measurement tells us how well the skin barrier is functioning. The next step is translating those results into targeted nutritional support. Veterinarians will prescribe the DermaPal device for dogs that have already been diagnosed with atopic dermatitis. The device only takes 30 minutes to get an accurate reading, and it is fear-free as minimal touching of the dog is required. Owners can even apply and remove the device if needed. And based on the colors that appear on the device, veterinarians can reference our website to view the evidence-based nutrient recommendations that are tailored to their dog's results. You guys can scan this now, or that'll be also at the end. So to give you some examples, if the device detects just the inflammatory cytokine IL-31 elevated, this indicates active itch signaling, and in this situation, we would recommend supplementing with vitamin D. If TEWL and cytokines are all elevated, this indicates more severe disease, and in this case, we recommend a combined nutritional approach, which targets inflammation, itch signaling, and barrier repair. All nutrient recommendations are designed to remain within established AAFCO nutritional guidelines while using supplementation that has shown improvement of clinical outcomes in dogs with atopic dermatitis. So Dragons, we're seeking $1 million for 15% equity in our company. This funding will allow us to complete our final engineering of the TEWL and cytokine detection systems, conduct validation across veterinary hospitals in Canada, and launch our first production run of 10,000 devices. Each device will cost approximately $20 to manufacture and will be sold to veterinarians for $45, who we estimate them to retail it for clients between $65 and $75. The global veterinary diagnostic market is rapidly growing and was valued at $8.4 billion in 2025 and is projected to reach $19 billion by 2033. And pet owners managing canine allergies like atopic dermatitis already spend hundreds, often thousands of dollars a year on medications, special diets, and repeated veterinary visits. DermaPal changes that by providing immediate personalized nutritional guidance backed by science that helps pet owners choose the right intervention the first time. In our first year, we predict sales to generate approximately $450,000 in revenue and $250,000 in profit, with rapid growth as we expand in international markets.
So in conclusion, our wearable device addresses a critical gap in canine AD management, with current methods relying on subjective visual assessments that often ignore the underlying physiological drivers. Our device gives insight into the elevated inflammatory cytokines, compromised skin barrier function, and the nutritional deficiencies that are fueling them. So by simultaneously measuring TEWL and our 3 cytokines, we provide vets with objective quantifiable data. All 3 colors signal abundant cytokine readings and a vitamin D deficiency, with strong red or blue or yellow indicating either vitamin A or additional iron deficits. Elevated TEWL shown by the yellow or red zones points to zinc, omega-3, or vitamin K. So this isn't simply a diagnostic tool, it enables actionable nutritional intervention. Early detection means targeted supplementation before AD progresses further, which reduces suffering and long-term treatment costs. For the pet food industry, this also opens the door to personalized nutrition strategies backed by measurable biomarkers. For owners and vets, it's a tool to transform guesswork into precision care. So as the demand for personalized pet health monitoring grows, our device represents the future where nutrition, diagnostics, and animal welfare converge into a single wearable device. For more information, I invite you to take a look at our brochure, which highlights how the device works, a little more about us, and how much it would cost the vet clinics. As well, you can scan the QR code here or on the back of the brochure to be taken to our website with the reference pictures. Thank you.
Hi everyone, we are Flora, Pranya, and Zach, and today we will be presenting on our product SunSync, which are exercise-activated lipid supplementation pellets for performance horses. We have circulated the brochure around, and we also have a poster here that provides more details of our product. And I will start the presentation by going through some problems in the industry and how SunSync could influence lipid supplementation for performance horses. So firstly, lipids serve as a high-density energy source for horses by offering 2.25 times more energy than carbohydrates. It reduces the risk of hyperactivity due to starch-based diets by providing cool energy. Conventional equine diets come from sources such as forage and hay, which the omega-3 comes in the form of alpha-linolenic acid, ALA. ALA is a precursor for omega-3s with higher biological activities. It synthesizes long-chain polyunsaturated fatty acids, and it's incorporated into cell membranes to enhance membrane fluidity and responsiveness. Moreover, ALA increases metabolic rate for performance horses to improve energy proficiency. Current studies have suggested that conventional equine diets fail to support the high energy requirements in horses, in which forage-based diets only provide 2 to 4% of fat in diets, whereas the lipid requirement for performance horses is around 5 to 10% of the diets. Moreover, high-grain diets are often deficient in ALA, which is essential for supporting cardiovascular health and recovery from exercise. To improve the lipid content in the lipid supplementations, alternative sources such as flaxseed oil and camelina oil are beneficial in increasing the energy density of diets. It was shown that although lipid supplementation can improve lipid intake for horses, studies have shown that lipid metabolism is largely influenced by physiological states, in which by providing the same amount of lipids for horses under different activity levels, it could result in oversupplementation for horses under rest periods, or undersupplementation for horses that have higher activity levels, resulting in negative energy balance. Failure to accommodate changes in physiological states could cause metabolic dysfunction, which results in serious consequences such as equine metabolic syndrome, EMS, and insulin insensitivity. Moreover, fat could accumulate in the hindgut, which would disrupt microbial populations and fiber digestion for the horses. As a result, our group proposes LipoSync, which are lipid supplementation pellets sensitive to changes in activity levels. It would benefit the horses by striking a balance between energy proficient and physiological states. As over 80% of horse owners offer nutritional supplements to their horses, with lipid supplementation being highly prevalent, we are confident that LipoSync could be widely applied to the industry by changing lipid supplementation mechanism and enhancing metabolic health and energy balance for performance horses. I will now pass the time to Parnia to elaborate more on the delivery and formulation of the product.
So our imagination as recent grads is to present LipoSync in an equine nutrition conference and tell them about our product, which we developed it based on collaborating with our professors at University of Guelph. Based on what Flora just mentioned, I'm gonna focus more on how this can be realistic and how it can be used in nutrition conference, in nutrition pharmaceutical companies. Okay, so the core is gonna be encapsulated by flaxseed oil. We chose flaxseed oil because it's rich in ALA omega-3, and it's and then afterwards the core we're gonna have to protect the oils inside. So we're gonna be using maltodextrin, gum arabic, and plant protein isolate. There is a reason that we chose these. Maltodextrin, it forms dry, stable matrix after it's sprayed dried. And also for gum arabic, it's good for stabilizing oil droplets in water. And also by using plant protein isolate, it's gonna help us to improve capsule strength, reduce oil leakage, and also it's gonna increase oxidative stability. Our next layer is gonna be our plant-based pellet matrix, which is gonna be around the encapsulation. We're gonna be using alfalfa meal and beet pulp fiber. The purpose of that is to support hindgut fermentation in horses and also maintain the recommended lipid levels. Then we're gonna go with our inner encapsulation layer before our outer. We're gonna be using chitosan and sodium alginate. The purpose of this layer is to protect omega-3 from oxidation, and also it helps us to have an improved shelf stability. And also it enables controlled release of the encapsulated flaxseed oil. Our outer layer is gonna consist on 2 layers. Layer A is gonna be our thermal responsive barrier, which we're gonna be using ethyl cellulose, and then our layer B is gonna be in charge of moisture and mechanical responsive layer, and it's gonna be formed by using alginate calcium gel layer and modified starch. We all have we chose all these materials for a reason, and there's research done for why we chose that, which I can talk about it later if you have that. And also for how it's gonna be delivered, you're gonna be having lipid sync in pellet forms, and it's designed to align with lipid energy delivery of the metabolic demand during exercise courses. So this is targeted for our racing horses or performance horses. There's gonna be changes in their body when they're doing high exercise or high intense exercise. Their body temperature is gonna increase, as well as digestive motility and also moisture exposure in digestive tract. These conditions cause the inner part of the capsule to be released and become more permeable. So the whole process starts with exercise, increase of body temperature, and then we're gonna have coating permeability and then lipid release. LipoSync is delivered as coated micro pellets mixed into concentrate feeds, allowing seamless integration into existing equine feeding practices. There's 3 advantages to this product: compatible with conventional feed pellets, and there's not gonna be no need to change in feeding management, and also controlled lipid supply during periods of higher energy demand. The figure below shows the electrolyte changes in horses during high exercise. And now I'm gonna pass the time to Zach.
Second, my team is Flora, the pioneer for predicting the scientific background and the formulation of LipoSync. Now I will focus on the economic and industry feasibility. In the Ontario, maintaining a high value performance horse can cost between $40,000 and $75,000 per year, and the feed is a major part of that cost. Poor nutrient timing can lead to wasted input, inconsistent performance, and increase the veterinary expense. LipoSync creates value by targeting racing, endurance, and sport horses, where owners are more willing to invest in performance-focused nutrition. On the production side, LipoSync uses a multi-layer pellet structure with an encapsulated flaxseed oil core. Although some coating materials are specialty ingredients, they make up only a small proportion of the final pellet. The estimated production cost is about $4 to $5 per kilogram. We project a retail price of around $80 per kilogram, giving a gross margin of roughly 44%. At a fitting rate of 100 to 200 grams per day, the daily cost is about 80 cents to $1.60, which is lower than many existing premium omega-3 products. And for the revenue, the Ontario target market is around 40,000 performance horses, with the first year penetration rate of 5% and annual consumption of 45 kilogram per horse. Projected year 1 revenue is about $720,000 by year 3, with expansion across Canada. Annual revenue could reach roughly $5.4 million. Overall, LipoSync improves cost efficiency by reducing waste rather than simply lowering price. It would compete through specialization and innovation, not scale, making it a commercially relevant innovation in equine nutrition. That's all for our presentation.
Okay, hi everyone. So our product is called EQ Light, and we have designed test strips that determine electrolyte losses in equine sweat. So starting with the background behind why our product is needed by horse owners. In the equine sports industry, horses that compete in high-level sports are considered to be serious athletes who are participating in heavy levels of activity multiple times a week. Horses tend to sweat a lot during heavy work or when competing in high-level sports, and they can lose up to 15 liters of sweat per hour during exercise. Sweat production in horses depends on multiple factors, with exercise level and environmental temperature playing the largest roles, leading to greater losses during heavy work in hot and humid conditions. When horses are producing greater volumes of sweat, this makes them more susceptible to dehydration, which can affect horse health and performance. Dehydration in horses can affect both blood and plasma volume, which leads to poor circulation, cardiac output, and heat regulation. More severe dehydration can lead to other problems like heat stroke, colic, kidney and liver insufficiency, and laminitis as well. So one significant component of sweat other than water is electrolytes, which includes minerals like sodium, chlorine, potassium, calcium, and magnesium. Furthermore, horses are hypertonic sweaters, meaning that they lose a lot of electrolytes through their sweat. This is a problem since electrolytes play a critical role in maintaining the body's functions, especially in the case of equine athletes. Proper electrolyte balance can promote better performance and safety as they're needed for neuromuscular function, and it reduces susceptibility to dehydration and exhaustion. Larger losses in electrolytes and fluids in horses can lead to other issues such as impaired thermal regulation, arrhythmias, rhabdomyolysis, diarrhea, and encephalopathy, all of which can affect the performance of the horse. Dehydration and electrolyte losses tend to be greater in horses that are competing in endurance, eventing, and racing disciplines because of their physical intensity, meaning that these are the horses that can use more support to maintain their fluid and electrolyte balance. So our product EQ Light is able to help with this problem since it can alert owners when a horse is losing too many electrolytes in their sweat, and then they can supplement those specific minerals in the diet when needed. Our product is targeted towards equine athletes since they tend to lose more sweat daily, but it can be used by anyone who feels the need to monitor their horse's electrolyte contents. Our product has a very similar design to other products such as pool test strips. And how EQ Light works is you take a test strip and place it on the area of the horse that is more concentrated with sweat, such as the neck, chest, back, girth area, etc., and hold the strip there for 15 seconds. After that, remove the strip and wait for around 30 to 60 seconds for the test squares to change color. Then refer to the color key that can be found on the back of the tube, or scan the strip using the EQ Light app to determine if the horse has a normal, high, or low concentration level of the different electrolytes. The strip has a test square for each electrolyte found in equine sweat, which includes sodium, chlorine, potassium, calcium, and magnesium. After the electrolyte losses have been determined by the test strip, owners can then refer to the app to purchase our electrolyte supplements. These are sold either individually in a mix of sodium, chlorine, and potassium, or as a complete supplement containing all 5 electrolytes. And then I also just have like a little model of like what our packaging would look like. It has just the information in the logo. It has the color key for the concentrations, and then the instructions in our QR code. And there's also just a little strip as well with all 5 pads.
So this is a mock-up of our app. And so as Lily mentioned, you would use the app to scan the strip, and then the app will analyze the results of the electrolyte concentration, and then make a suggestion for how you can formulate your horse's electrolyte mixture after the exercise that they have done. And then you can also shop our line of electrolytes on this app. So there's a couple of what the screens might look like.
We've also created a very short instructional video. Of course, it should be very informative anyways on the bottle, but this will also be applied to our app to make it easy for customers. So now let's walk through the 5 key electrolytes and what they actually do in the horse's body. Sodium is the primary driver of thirst and fluid balance. It's essentially what tells a horse to drink. Chloride works alongside sodium, maintaining osmotic pressure and forming the stomach acid needed for digestion. Potassium controls the resting membrane potential in every cell, making it critical for heart rhythm and muscle function. Calcium does more than build bones. It triggers muscle contraction and supports nerve signaling and blood clotting. Magnesium acts as a cofactor for over 300 enzymatic reactions, prompting muscle relaxation and nerve stability. Now let's look at how much horses lose and need. Sodium and chloride have the highest sweat losses, around 4,000 to 5,500 milligrams per liter. And neither is stored well, so intake matters. Potassium losses are lower, but it also has minimal storage capacity. Calcium and magnesium are stored more effectively, mostly in bone, but performance horses still have significantly higher daily requirements across the board. Retention is regulated by the kidneys and hormones like aldosterone and parathyroid hormone and vitamin D. So what happens when these drop too low? Sodium deficiencies cause fatigue, reduced water intake, and impaired thermoregulation. Low chloride leads to metabolic alkalosis and poor digestion. Potassium deficiency can cause muscle weakness and tying up, and in severe cases, life-threatening cardiac arrhythmias. Calcium deficiency presents as thumps, tremors, and in severe cases, tetany and collapse. And low magnesium causes nervousness, hypersensitivity, and in extreme cases, ataxia and cardiovascular instability. These aren't just performance issues, they're welfare concerns.
Okay, so look at each product first for the economic breakdown. So each strip is going to cost about 18 cents to make, and then there's 4 main components. There's the substrate and adhesive, the reagent pad, sample pad, and then the packaging, all of which are really just a few cents each. And so we will sell the strips in a pack of 100, and each pack will cost $40. So then our profit per package will end up being $22. And then for the electrolytes, they're going to be sold in 5 kilogram tubs. They're going to be around $25 each, with the cost being $17, but that's also very variable between each of the different electrolytes. So around $8 a tub for profit. If we take a look at the first year overview, electrolyte supplements make up the largest portion of the equine supplement market. So the whole market is valued at 91.4 million. And within Canada and the US, there's about 1.2 million racehorses. And so if we assume a 5% adoption rate, we'd be looking at just over 60,000 units. However, we have to take into account that it'll take around 200 strips a year per horse. So if we times that by 2, we're looking at 122,000 strips. Packages of strips. And then for the electrolytes, if we assume that 15% of strip users also then go and trial our electrolytes, we'll be selling just over 9,000 units of the electrolytes. So then for revenue, that gives us 4.9 million for the strips. And then for the electrolytes, just under 230,000 for a total revenue of 5.1 million. For our expenses, the largest portion of that is manufacturing costs. Between the strips and the electrolytes, you're looking at 2.3 million. The app creation will be around 110,000. That is only a first year cost, obviously. But then to maintain it every subsequent year, you're looking at around 30,000. For marketing, we're looking around 122,000. That will include sponsoring events, competitions, and then some digital marketing efforts.
The second largest portion of expenses is the logistics and distribution, coming under just $1 million, just under $1 million. And then a couple other notable expenses are e-commerce fees, customer service, warehouse employees, building and other related overhead. And so all of that combined comes to 4.3 million, leaving us with a net profit of $770,000. Yeah.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. So today I'll be talking about my product, AllerZinc Pet Care. So just a brief background and introduction. So canine atopic dermatitis is a common condition that requires long-term management. It's often driven by proteins or food-related, and essentially it's an allergic response and inflammation. Nutrient bioavailability, such as the use of organic zinc, also plays an important role in maintaining skin health. So these challenges essentially highlighted the need for a targeted multifunctional approach, which led to the development of AllerZinc. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about zinc and canine atopic dermatitis. So zinc is an essential trace mineral that plays a critical role in skin health and immune function in canines. It supports processes such as wound healing, epithelial integrity, and then just overall like skin health. In dogs, impaired zinc absorption or deficiencies have been associated with reduced ability to maintain normal skin barrier function, which can worsen conditions such as canine atopic dermatitis. There's also evidence that zinc absorption can be enhanced when combined with essential fatty acids, but I'll talk more about that later. Importantly, zinc supplementation has also been explored as an adjunct strategy in the management of canine atopic dermatitis. There aren't very many studies that have been published, but those that have been published have demonstrated improvements in overall skin conditions. So AllerZinc Pet Care is a zinc-centered nutritional service designed to support immune function and reduce inflammation in allergy-prone canines. So then rather than focusing only on symptom management, AllerZinc targets underlying dietary factors, particularly zinc status, formulation, and nutritional context. So through partnerships with shelters and veterinary professionals, the aim is to make the services both affordable and accessible to pet owners from all backgrounds. And ultimately, the goal is to provide tailored evidence-based recommendations to improve canine health, comfort, and quality of life. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about how AllerZinc works. So AllerZinc operates through a two-tiered service model designed to support both early intervention and more complex cases. So I'm just going to note really quickly in this slide that for the purposes of my presentation today, most of like the cost breakdown, that kind of thing, focused on tier 1 services, because that is the service level that most clients will be going through. The tier 2 services are an additional add-on that only begin or are offered when symptoms persist at the end of the tier 1 intervention. So for tier 1, it's just essentially the initial assessment and intervention. Dogs are screened at partner shelters to identify allergy-related concerns, followed by a veterinary assessment, including a physical exam. And based on the findings, AllerZinc may be recommended as a targeted nutritional intervention with follow-up appointments used to monitor progression and adjust as needed. And then, as I mentioned, tier 2 is designed for those severe cases or non-responsive cases. If the symptoms persist after the end of tier 1 services, the client will be offered a diagnostic upgrade. So that includes like blood work to assess inflammatory status and identify any other underlying conditions. And then in that situation, treatment is offered directly under the direct supervision of a veterinarian. So how AllerZinc works. So the slide just outlines the mechanism of action behind AllerZinc. So it essentially just highlights how the three ingredients work both independently and then synergistically to support canine health. So zinc, of course, is the primary active component, and that plays a critical role in immune regulation and maintaining skin integrity. Omega-3 is also an ingredient to contribute to anti-inflammatory effects by modulating eicosanoid production and shifting the balance towards less inflammatory mediators, because as we know, canine atopic dermatitis causes inflammation. And then vitamin E is also in there, and it acts as antioxidant protection to essentially protect these cells from damage. And then together, they come together to produce a combined effect in which zinc regulates the immune response, omega-3 reduces inflammatory signaling, and vitamin E protects against oxidative stress. So the slide provides a nutritional breakdown of the key ingredients in Allerzinc. I didn't include like flavoring, that kind of thing, just because I knew that it might be a bit much information to get through. But just focusing on the key ingredients and how they are absorbed. I'm not going to go through everything in detail just for time's sake, but starting with zinc in the Allerzinc nutritional analysis, we're going to be using zinc methium-9. And then for omega-3s, as I mentioned, it reduces the inflammation. And then the vitamin E, the antioxidant protection. The only thing I'll just say about the dosage level that I used, zinc and vitamin E do have a required minimum dosage level based on AFCO guidelines. I didn't use those specifically. I stayed within the guidelines, but I used dosage levels based on studies that explored inflammation. So, for example, for zinc, there was a study that was exploring canine atopic dermatitis specifically, and they recommended 15 milligrams per 1,000 kcals for adult dogs. And then for omega-3s, like I said, there's no requirement. So I used a pretty popular study by Ruche et al. That was exploring canine inflammation through, I believe it was, I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it was arthritis, canine arthritis. And that one indicated, I believe, like 0.1 for 1,000 kcals. And then vitamin E, I also used a study that was based on inflammation at about 8.1 international units per body weight per day. So this is just the ingredient list or analysis. As you can see, the primary ingredients are zinc, fish oil, and vitamin E, with the remaining ingredients kind of contributing to the format. Sorry about that. The format of the pill, and it is like a supplement that we offer. In terms of the economic breakdown, so I focused mainly on the main ingredients, manufacturing, that kind of thing, raw shipping, raw bulk costs. So zinc and vitamin E contribute minimally to cost at around 5 cents to 30 cents per unit. Omega fatty acids represent the largest costs at around $1.50 to $3 due to sourcing and like formulation requirements. Manufacturing, packaging, and distribution, I believe they added a total based on the chart of like $2 to $4 per unit. So the projected retail price for around a 30-day supply of supplements was around $22 to $35. I included in there the initial appointment fee as well as the follow-up appointments. As I mentioned, I didn't go into like super super in detail, just because this is going through veterinary partners at the like local humane societies. So I didn't want to overcomplicate things, but the projected profit for profits and services was around $85 to $100 per client. The numbers, of course, that would fluctuate based on the number of clients, but my idea for the project was to have this service be operated through the sorry, I'm blanking off the I literally just lost my train of thought. Sorry about that. But it would be offered through the health services for preventative care at the Humane Society. So it would be more in partnership with that than independent, which would keep costs down. This is just a brochure. Sorry, it's not super clear. I didn't think it was going to open for my presentation just because of the format. But essentially, I just put together a brochure because I do work at a humane society, and a lot of the time we do have clients whose dogs have severe to moderate allergies, oftentimes to proteins, and it's just not a service that is typically very affordable at like your local general practitioner. So I thought that a brochure would be best, just because a lot of the times some of our clients, especially within the communities that we're working with, don't have access to internet or don't really understand how to use it. So I thought that a brochure would make the most sense. Sorry that I'm not able to open it in like full terms, but I essentially just highlighted the fact that we offer affordable, accessible solutions for canines, you know, and describe the type of dog and their symptoms that this service may be beneficial to, and then also just like some reviews, that kind of thing. So in conclusion, Allers Inc. supports canine skin health through a multifaceted approach, targeting inflammation, oxidative stress, and immune function. Together, this leads to improved skin health, reduced inflammation, and ultimately an enhanced quality of life for dogs with allergic conditions. Thank you.
Hi everyone, today we're going to be introducing a theoretical nutritional product designed to support brain health in aging cats called Brain Saver. So as cats are living longer than ever before, there is an increasing need to address age-related conditions that impact their quality of life that their current nutritional diets are not addressing. So Brain Saver was developed with this goal in mind, focusing specifically on cognitive health and aging. So our mission with Brain Saver is to support cognitive health in aging cats through science-based, palatable nutritional solutions that cats can consume consistently. And our vision extends beyond a single product. We want to redefine how cognitive aging is managed in companion animals by integrating targeted nutrition into everyday feeding routines, as well as rely on like these newly established like routine feedings rather than being reactive or administering like difficult solutions for our cats.
Okay, so over the past several decades, the average lifespan of domestic cats has increased significantly. And so as cats continue to live longer, we're also seeing a rise in the age-related conditions that were previously under-recognized. And so one of the most significant of these is the feline cognitive dysfunction syndrome, or CDS. And CDS is an increasingly prevalent condition, with studies showing that about 50% of cats older than 15 years old display signs of cognitive impairment. And so these symptoms may include abnormal vocalizations, disorientation, changes in sleep-wake cycles, altered social interactions, increased anxiety, and inappropriate elimination outside the litter box. And so these signs are still often overlooked until they become quite severe, as about only 10% of owners report age-related changes to their veterinarians. So at a biological level, aging feline brains experience increased neural inflammation, elevated oxidative stress, and a gradual decline in neuronal number and function. Together, these changes impair memory, learning ability, and overall cognitive performance. And because these changes begin well before severe symptoms appear, there's a growing interest in preventative nutritional strategies that's able to support brain health earlier in the aging process. So our solution, which should the box.
Our solution is Brain Saver, and it's designed as to deliver targeted nutrients that support cognitive function in aging cats. So it combines key ingredients, DHA, B vitamins, and antioxidants that work together to support brain health. One of the, okay, no worries. One of the most important of these is docosahexaenoic acid, or DHA, an omega-3 fatty acid that supports neuronal structure. Don't worry about it, it's just paper. And helps regulate inflammation of the brain. So as cats age, brain DHA levels decline, and they have a limited ability to synthesize it. So consistent dietary intake becomes especially important. To ensure these benefits are consistently delivered, Brain Saver uses a palatable semi-liquid format that integrates easily into existing feeding routines to promote that reliable daily intake. So why does this work? Brain Saver is designed not only around the nutrients that are included, but how they function together. So when we start with DHA, this helps maintain the brain structure and reduce inflammation, supporting overall neuronal integrity. Secondly, we have the B vitamin complex that supports neural metabolism by contributing to energy production and neurotransmitter function. And then finally, because these fatty acids are highly prone to oxidative damage, vitamin E plays a critical role in protecting lipids from degradation and preserving their function and effectiveness.
Okay, so let's go and talk about our product experience. So Brain Saver was developed to address the gap in nutritional support for cognitive aging in cats. Unlike pills or capsules, it's formulated as a semi-liquid food topper that can be added directly to a cat's regular meals. This way of distributing the product improves voluntary intake, reduces the burden of administration for both cats and owners, and enhances the bioavailability of key nutrients. Fat-soluble nutrients such as DHA or vitamin E are more effectively absorbed in lipid-based matrices than in a dry or pill forms. The semi-liquid matrix not only supports better nutrient digestion and retention, but also helps ensure more consistent intake over time, which is essential for preventative supplementation. We also see that palatability is critical, particularly in senior cats who may have reduced appetite as well as they may have diminished sensory perception. Cats naturally prefer moist textures and animal-based proteins. So the chicken-based topper is highly appealing by combining a highly palatable formulation with a functional nutrient profile. Brain Saver encourages long-term and consistent use. So when we look at our market and our customers, our primary target market is senior cat owners, particularly those who own cats over the age of 7, who are beginning to think about preventative health and long-term well-being. These consumers are often looking for solutions that are both effective and easy to incorporate into their day-to-day life. Veterinarians also represent a strong secondary channel, whereby they are a trusted source of nutritional information, and they also are most likely some of the first people to start identifying symptoms of cognitive decline in our felines. In terms of distribution, Brain Saver is well suited for the pet retail industry, as well as it could be sold in just casual retail stores, as well as we can have an online shop where we're selling directly to customers from our own platform. So when we look at our production cost, it's important to understand how we broke it down on a per unit basis. So starting with the raw ingredients, DHA from an algae oil costs approximately $60 per kilogram, and at an inclusion rate of 1 gram per individual tube, we're looking at about 6 cents per unit, which provides roughly 200 milligrams of DHA. Fish oil, which will also be incorporated in our product, is slightly cheaper, and that is about $33 per kilogram, which in our tube at 1 gram would also then be 3 cents. And the difference in price is really because fish oil can be a byproduct of the industry, whereas algae oil is specifically cultivated for that purpose, which can increase its cost. The chicken base contributes about 6 cents per unit. The tapioca starch used as a thickener would be very minuscule, but like 0.002 cents per unit. And the addition of vitamins such as vitamin E and our B complex vitamins are also relatively inexpensive at this time, although there is sometimes fluctuations, and these would be incorporated at 0.05 to 1 milligram of B vitamins, as well as 5 to 10 international units for vitamin E, and altogether that would be around 3 to 4 cents per unit. So altogether, we're seeing that our product ingredient cost is 19 cents per tube. However, I also want to talk about shelf life. So since omega-3 fatty acids are prone to oxidation, they do degrade fairly quickly if not stored properly. And Brain Saver is packaged in single-use tubes that limit exposure to air and light. The product also undergoes a slow a slow and low kind of heat treatment whereby to preserve the product, as well as we have that vitamin E in there to help preserve the DHA. So therefore, we think we can give our product a 1-year shelf life to be safe. Moving on to kind of our packaging, this represents the largest cost of our product actually. So the yogurt style tubes that we want to use would cost about 58 cents per unit. And in terms of labor, assuming on a small scale production rate of Hannah and myself doing 300 units per hour, and we'd be paying ourselves minimum wage at this point, that would be looking at around 6 cents per individual unit, as well as the equipment we would need would be a food processor and a syringe to inject the yogurt tubes, and let's say over 10,000 units. If we were to even out the cost of this product, that would be about 3 cents. So when all components are combined, we see a total production cost of around 86 cents per 15-gram tube. To ensure profitability and account for extra cost barriers such as shipping and labeling, the product could be priced at $6 for a pack of 4, and this could be like a trial for the animal or for the cat to make sure they like it. And we would also offer packs that have 20 or 60 tubes in them, and that would be priced at $30 or $60 respectively. So in our first year of advertising and whatnot, we would hope just to break even as we're getting our name out into the market. However, going into our second year of business, we would hope that we could earn an annual revenue of about $100,000. And that would be based on the fact if we could get 183 people to use Brain Saver every day for 1 year, that's what $100,000 would be for us. So looking at some other work we did, we have a brochure, as you may have seen. As part of our media, we developed this brochure, and it's basically the front of it, it uses a did you know format to kind of catch your eye as we all want to know more about our animals, I feel like. Inside, the content focuses on helping owners recognize early behavioral changes while introducing Brain Saver as a simple nutrition-based approach to feline cognitive health. It also highlights key ingredients and what makes a product different, particularly it's palatable, easy to use, and also it promotes consistent intake. Overall, the brochure is designed to communicate the science in a way that's clear to audiences in different settings, such as in a retail store for selling the product alongside the tubes.
Okay. So then for like our last media, we kind of just did a quick little website. And so this is a sample page of basically if you were to purchase this item and what it would look like in a retail market setting. So the product page focuses on clearly communicating, obviously, both the function and the ease of use of the product. And then as the user scrolls, they're guided through the key benefits of this topper, such as omega-3 fatty acids, DHA, and B vitamins, and then all what their intentions are. These are presented in a simplified, consumer-friendly way to have the customer understand as easily as possible. And then when we have the ingredients and guaranteed analysis, that's obviously to build transparency and trust with the consumer. But yeah, and then overall, it's just good to be adapted into their everyday routine. And I think that was it. Yeah.
Thanks for listening. So today my project is on BromoCan, which is a transgenic bromoform canola oil for methane mitigation using like a multimodal approach. So a little bit about methane production to start. It's from enteric fermentation from the microorganisms coming inside. About 80% of it is birth. It uses about 2 to 12% of your gross energy. And so the reduction of this can help with feed efficiency. And in general, cows can make about 150 to 600 liters per day. And it's modulated by feed intake, diet, and genetics. When we're looking at Canada as a whole, about 33% of Canadian methane production is done by agriculture, and about 85% of that proportion is from enteric fermentation, and cattle make up about 95% of that proportion. Over a 20-year period, methane has an 86 times higher global warming potential than carbon dioxide, and part of that reason is that methane is a short-lived climate pollutant living around 12 years in the atmosphere, and during its time in the atmosphere it becomes ozone and carbon dioxide, which increases this global warming potential, and about 35% of the ozone burden is related to methane. And so part of what this causes is health-related mortalities and health issues, problems with crop yields and overall reductions in the future, and then changes in carbon storage. So the basis of this is vitamin B12 and fermentation. So the microbial community in cows is very powerful and allows them to create a lot of vitamin B12. about 12 to 663 times what's provided in their feed. Vitamin B12 is created by about 20% of the microorganisms in the rumen, and about 80% of it require it for growth and metabolism. So it's a very important component. And the last enzyme in the methanogenesis pathway is mediated by vitamin B12. So it provides a good opportunity to stop methanogenesis prior to emission in a way that doesn't inhibit the B12 concentrations within the rumen for the microorganisms. So for feed additives, when it comes to mitigation, one of the commonly used ones is red seaweed, also known as Asparagus taxiformis. It's seaweed that contains bromoform as the main ingredient and the main modulator to change the anaerobic and aerobic populations and to inhibit that NCR enzyme that I discussed in the last step of methanogenesis. So it contains between 1 and 5% of bromoform per dry matter. About 1 kilogram of dried seaweed costs about 9.2 kilograms of CO2 equivalents when we're looking at more of like a aquaculture farmed procedure. And it requires preservation through freeze drying or suspension in oil because bromoform is a very like volatile compound, and we see degradation starting even at 2 weeks. Where almost at 12 weeks, we've reduced over 50% of the concentration and therefore reducing the amount of methane reduction possible. At an inclusion rate of about 0.5% for the organic matter, we see a range of methane reduction between 59% and 86%, which is fairly significant when it comes to the other possibilities of methane mitigation. Another thing I'm using here is canola oil. So oils in the diet, when it comes to ruminal fermentation, provide a hydrogen sink. So it reduces the amount of hydrogen available for methane. It also inhibits methanogens by attacking the archaeal membrane layer and the protozoa that are help supporting the methanogens in their process. And coming off of that, it suppresses fermentation in general. So it will reduce the general amount of fiber that's digested. And the completeness of digestion, and it shifts the general metabolic process away from acetate, which creates hydrogens for methanogenesis, into propionate. In general, oil is supplemented at about 4 to 6% of the diet on a dry matter basis. This is generally like a lower impact way to reduce methane, but in combination with the bromoform, it can provide an added benefit. When it comes to the environmental cost of this, so for the seed, about a kilogram of seed is equivalent to 0.43 kilogram carbon dioxide equivalents. And for a kilogram of oil, we're at about 2.15 kilograms for carbon dioxide compared to that 9.2 figure for the seaweed. In general, when we look at feeding canola oil, we see a very positive effect to about 8%, but it is a lot less than when it comes to Asparagus taxiformis or bromoform and red seaweed. So it provides the ability to modulate in a dual capacity to create more of a benefit. So bromocan is canola that is added with the genetics of the bromoform creation that red seaweed has, with the ability through extraction of the oil to have the bromoform suspended in oil so that additional processing to preserve the bromoform isn't required. So I theorize that it could contain between 0.1 to 1% of bromoform, but it's kind of difficult to assess. This has to do a lot with the fertilizer that you provide and the additional genetic modulation that you do surrounding the storage for the halogen and the reactive oxidative species. Because bromoform generally, red seaweed generally takes bromoform from the water to help it grow, so you would have to provide either the building blocks to bromoform or bromoform to the soil for this to be successful. At about 0.1% of bromoform oil extraction, to keep it very mild when it comes to expectations, you would get about 1 gram of bromoform for a kilogram of oil. So a 550 kilogram cow would require about 0.39 kilograms of bromocan a day for this mitigation. And in the study that looked at seeping asparagus in canola oil, we saw that at 51 milligrams of bromoform for the dry matter, it had a mitigation effect of 98.9. So there's a positive potential for reducing in a very vast way that can really help our methane mitigation potential. So when it comes to the economics of development and production, it's a little bit complicated because as soon as you get into transgenics, you get into regulatory troubles. So the total cost of the R&D when it comes to a transgenic crop is about $115 million. This has gone down from about 2008 to 2012, where it was about 123 million. This is based on a study surrounding Bayer, Corteva, and a lot of the seed companies that are currently producing GMO seeds. And like I said, the most significant thing is when it comes to the regulatory science of it, and then also the early discovery and optimization of the product. When you look at boots on the ground, growing the canola, the cost of goods sold kind of refers to your initial inputs. So for seed costs, I said $90 to increase about 15% from the general GMO ones that we see today that are like Roundup ready, to kind of provide for this little bit of a high R&D cost. The fertilizer cost I think would be fairly comparable at about $150 per acre. Crop production and insurance should change at about $80. And the direct operating costs I didn't think would change when it comes to a per acre basis on this. So the total cost per acre would be $411. It would yield about 900 kilograms of an acre, and you use about 5 kilograms of canola seed to create canola oil and the cold pressing method, which I'll discuss in a minute. So 1 acre of land could feed 461 cows for 1 day, and the average cost is about 89 cents per cow. And this is using a very generously low number of bromoform in the canola. So when you look at the processing of the canola, you have cleaning, sorting, and dehulling, which is common in every processing for canola oil. You have flaking, which is like the mechanical split for the seeds. Conditioning, which reduces the overall moisture of the seeds. And cold pressing. I chose cold pressing because it gets to about 25 degrees Celsius when it comes to the heat, in the hopes of protecting that bromoform and protecting some of those plant secondary compounds that canola has when it comes to like tannins and saponins that can provide additional benefits to the rumen. And then it needs to go through filtration and storage. My hope with this would be that we could run a private process in an already commercialized plant, but there is no statistics on that since farmers generally just sell their crops there and aren't really receiving the product back. So when you look at kind of a more artisanal situation for a small cold press system, it would do about 5 to 20 tons of canola seed a day, and it would cost between $30,000 and $80,000. And when it comes to the producer use and experience, one of the biggest things is about how our producers going to get their money back. So there's the Canadian carbon credit system. Currently, this would not be eligible for it because there isn't the research surrounding it to the government's satisfaction. But the hope is that if we went through the R&D to create this transgenic crop, that it would have enough basis for it to be provided in this. So it's an application that farmers make where they declare the amount of methane that they are reducing. So I took a conservative 85% reduction when we were seeing like a 98% reduction when we were looking at the canola oil and bromoform combined. 1 cow would reduce their methane output by about 465 grams a day, which would be about 4.25 carbon credits. When we look at the cost, since it's like a stock market between $7 and $24, they could do between $29 and $102, but that's not enough for our current price. So we're at about $2.80 when it comes to our price for oil. Comparatively to the market, that's like at $5.20, but there's just, when I'm being conservative in my estimates, it's not enough to make it totally profitable with the carbon system. But my hope here is that in addition to this, with the calculator, it could provide an easy way for producers to feed this. So one of my concerns was about how are producers going to know how much to feed of this, especially when it comes to balancing the energy ration of their diets. So I collect information surrounding an average cow in their herd in the hopes that it would be representative. I either ask for their dry matter intake if they have it, or I try and estimate it from the other information provided. And from that, I asked for the concentration of bromoform that would be on the label of this bromoform canola oil. And then if they would like to receive information about their potential mitigation, their general methane production of the animal, and if they would like an estimate of the carbon credit potential and how aggressive they would like to be in mitigation, to be mindful of if there's cost restraints. In the hope that I start to disseminate some of this information, as a lot of farmers don't understand how much methane they're creating. And I hope that the mitigation potential could make this more economically feasible. Thank you.